Welcome to Reddit Aliens. Hey Reddit, what's one time that you knew something was off about someone, but just couldn't prove it? Serious. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'm from an area where everyone knows everyone, and even if you've never met a person, chances are you know who they are, and they know who you are. This was also the time when people would add each other on Facebook despite never meeting, just because so-and-so is friends with them and you know who they were. There was this guy who was notorious for hitting on every girl possible on Facebook, more than one. The very first and only conversation I had with him, he asked me to blow him in the emergency stairwell at the mall, then started hurling insults when I rejected him. Whole thing creeped me the hell out. Ended up blocking him and forgot he existed until a few years ago when his face was front and center on a news article circulating on Facebook. He was 21 and was sexually harassing a 14-year-old girl, which brought out a bunch of other shady shit he was doing involving minors, and how he's in jail and a registered sex offender. Knew something wasn't right about him, but back in high school no one listened because he's so hot, and that's just how he is, and he's so sweet once you get to know him. Yeah. Glad I trusted my gut over everyone who fell for his nice guy routine. My parents had a close friend when I was pretty young, maybe between 8 and 10 years old. He came over a lot to drink or shoot guns with my dad, but I didn't like him one bit. He just gave me a bad feeling. I remember sticking my tongue out at him every time back was to me. Never said anything to my parents though, I just stayed away when he was over. My mom ended up hiring him to work at the pawn shop she ran. And after he started, things went missing. Now, I don't remember how they figured out he was stealing, but he did have a gallon Ziploc filled with jewelry. The cops tried to convince the owner not to press charges since he got the jewelry back, but the owner went through with it. As soon as they booked him, his fingerprints came back from an unsolved double homicide. He had brutally murdered an elderly couple when they came home mid-robbery. After he killed him, he drank their milk, leaving his prints on the jug on the counter. Okay, the first sentence of this story really threw me off. I had to reread it because if you read it, it almost sounds like your parents had a friend who was 8 to 10 years old and he drank a lot and then got a job at a pawn shop instead of you being 8 and 10. It's all about proper grammar, but I liked it anyway. When I was little, like 7 or something, I took karate at my school because for some reason they offered it there. I always got a really weird vibe from the dude. He would yell and harass the boys while he would be very creepy to the girls. Keep in mind, we were the ages of 6 to 14. One day, I specifically remember him leading me to one of the back rooms to help him move some boxes, and at the time I was very impressionable, but I knew something was up. He was rubbing my back and touching my shoulders in a very strange way, and even at 7, I knew that something was wrong. I'm female, by the way. Well, I remember getting out of there as fast as I could, and he got angry, so he didn't let me advance to my next belt, and constantly yelled at me, getting up in my face and would whip my feet and one time my ass with his belt. I obviously quit because I became very paranoid. Fast forward to when I was 11, a news article came out, and to my not-so-shocked self, he had been arrested for having sex with a few teens and touching some kids. Follow your instincts. My mom used to have this friend years ago when we lived in a pretty nice looking house, and she would often show up uninvited and act too comfortable in our house. My mom would always just say that it's probably just because that lady comes from a different culture, but I was suspicious of the lady stealing some stuff from our house. One day, the lady invites my mom to the beach. My mom has a huge fear of water and can't swim at all, so she avoids it. But she tends to be overly polite, so she decides to go. At the beach, the lady pressures my mom to go swim, assuring her that they'll stay close to the shore and whatnot. The lady ended up shoving my mom in and standing back to watch as my mom had a difficult time keeping herself up and trying to swim back to shore. My best friend was a wealthy only child. We went to the same college and he had his own apartment off campus. His party lifestyle attracted good and bad attention. Eventually, an older, mid-20s guy latched onto him and moved into the spare room with his girlfriend. This guy had a big fake smile and was constantly talking about holistic medicine, aromatherapy, blah blah blah. His girlfriend was basically a slave that cooked and cleaned up after him. I spent less time with my friend, but I was there the day things boiled over. Items had gone missing, and my friend was upset. He accused Mr. Asshole of stealing from him, and that led to a fistfight. I, 6'4", 250, broke up the fight and kicked out the unwelcomed guest and told his girlfriend to pack their shit. Turns out the holistic medicine they favored was heroin. The girlfriend was a runaway whose family was desperate for her to return. She made it home and went into rehab, and he got arrested in an airport out west carrying 2 ounces of sneezing powder in his hand luggage. He was wanted in 3 states for trafficking, and someone who hated him even more than I did set him up for a 20-year stay at Club Fed. I was friends with this kid for a while, and he was always weird. He always made some sort of sexual joke or comment about you or something he wanted to do to you. Although the comments were weird, everyone brushed them off as if they were a joke. Me and him were really close at one point and decided that we would get drunk. At first I felt uneasy, as I do not drink, and I wasn't really comfortable with the idea of being around him and getting drunk, as I know his personality. Eventually, he persuaded me to drink with him, and after a few shots, we were pretty drunk. After that, we headed over to his place and had to act completely sober in front of his parents. After a while, it had been quite a while since we had drank. I was starting to feel or act more sober than a few hours before, and from my point of view, he did too. After a while, he was starting to act his usual self and make the sexual comments, but out of nowhere, he started acting upon it too. At the end of the night, he had sexually assaulted me and another girl. The friendship had ended shortly after that experience. A guy in my college friend group, nice, funny, seemed like a really good guy. He and I shared a lot of interests, so we would hang out a lot, just the 2 of us, but always in public places. I would get a slightly weird vibe from him, but ignored it since he was being nothing but friendly. One night, we'd all been drinking at his place. I realized too late that I had missed the last bus home, so I asked if I could crash on his couch until morning, which in hindsight might have been the most stupid decision of my life, but I didn't think anything of it at first as I was used to hanging out with him. The other people left, and it was just him and me. I started getting a really bad feeling out of nowhere, so instead of going to sleep like I'd planned, I pretended I wasn't tired and kept talking to him. He offered to show me around his house. I agreed, but again had a very bad feeling about it, so I made sure to put my phone in my pocket before I followed him and never put him between myself and the door. Nothing happened. We just stayed up talking, and I felt really stupid as I left in the early morning hours. 2 weeks later, he assaulted another girl in our group while she was at his house. After that, I never ignore my gut feeling about a person. A guy in my high school class. He was friendly, put together, kinda got along with everyone, but at the same time just not very likable. Spending time with him one-on-one was always a bit weird. There were rumors that he raped a girl in our class, but he was so nice so everyone thought she was exaggerating. She didn't, and he did. This was 15 plus years ago, so there wasn't as much of a discussion about what consent is as now. When it was graduation time, he offered to plan our class party. He had connections and was a party guy, and no one else really wanted to take that on, so we sent him money. He took the money and left the country like a week before graduation. Effing creep. Gut feeling kind of thing. The first time I met the boyfriend of one of the girls in our friend group, I just got bad vibes off him. I told my closest friend from the group, and he said I was nuts and that Kevin, not his real name obviously, was a nice guy. He's into the same sports and TV shows as us, and that he came across as a genuine guy. I replied that only time will tell. Forward a few years, and Kevin and Jesse were married with 2 kids. My close friend reminded me of what I said all those years previously and smugly remarked about how wrong I was. Literally the next day, Jesse announced their split to the group, saying he was stealing birthday and Christmas cards from his job as a mailman, had asked both her, separated parents, to borrow their credit card to book tickets for a show and skin them for tens of thousands of dollars, and sold her car and the kids' game consoles all to fund his gambling addiction. Ugh. And on top of that, he was dipping his wick in all he could get and had gotten one woman pregnant during it all. Turns out I was right all along. A friend of a friend DM'd me out of the blue a few weeks ago, and right off the bat felt the creep vibe. tried to be nice, asked how things are going, and within minutes and without prompting, he was oversharing. How he'd lost touch with all his friends since getting out of jail, how all he'd ever wanted was to have kids, so he left a legacy, not to parent them, but just to pass on his family name or genes, and how lonely he was. His wife is in the midst of her third bout of cancer and is little more than half his age, and I kept bringing her up in the conversation because he was getting more and more open, like not even flirtatious, just dropping very obvious, intentional hints at wanting to F me. The first time he was like, "Yeah, I love my wife, but with the cancer we can't really do nothing in the bedroom. I would never leave her though, and will always take care of her." The second time, he made a more blunt innuendo at me. I told him it made me uncomfortable, so I'd be blocking him and would not like to be contacted again. Didn't wait for a response before hitting block. And you should never have to wait or wonder about hitting the block button. Just hit that thing. Don't worry about it. Creeps are creeps. Was going to a very big university in a college town, barely 18, worked at a fast food restaurant that had people bring you food on skates. I got hit on by a lot of college kids. Big football player asked for my number. I gave it to him. He looked handsome and nice. He texts me later and asks to go to a party with me. I don't know why. Instantly got bad vibes from him. Don't know what made me feel that way. I said no thanks, I'm busy. He instantly tried to guilt me into going, and I felt good about my decision about not going. Years later, I see his face on the news. He'd been found guilty of multiple rapes. He's still in jail to this day. Big bullet dodged. Always listen to your gut. When I was 10, my mom was dating this guy. He creeped me out, and I just didn't like him in general, but because I was 10, everyone just assumed it was because I was immature and wanted all my mom's attention. Later, they broke up, I think, because he had been living with his ex. Then he started stalking me and my mom, just following us, watching us through the window of our apartment, showing up and talking to me alone in places we had gone. Eventually, my mom got a lawyer to scare him off with the letter. We didn't see him for a while, just here and there. But then in high school, after moving from 2 different apartments since he and my mom were together, I noticed him watching me as he slowly drove down our street. I told my mom, and she went to his Facebook and saw that he had been posting weird messages directed at her in other languages she knew. She messaged him to stop bothering us or she'd get the police involved, though we had tried that originally and they couldn't do much to help. He stopped again, but even now, 12 years since it first started, he still does weird shit every so often, so you know he's still thinking of her. Like making an Instagram account and liking old pictures I had posted of her years ago for Mother's Day. Had a guy in high school who was overly pushy about wanting to hang out with me after only knowing me for a day. Would constantly message at all hours of the night. One day, when on our way home, I took a back way and passed by him laying in his car down the road from my house just watching. Needless to say, I blocked him on everything and cut all contact. Fast forward 3 years, and he was charged for murdering his sister's son, who he was fostering. The little boy was only 18 months old and had evidence of months of excessive physical abuse that eventually led to him dying. My mother recently told me a story that happened to my grandfather back in the 80s. At the time, he was working for a fairly big company in the south of Paris. He said he would get along with most of the other employees and overall had a pretty good time working there. He was sharing his office with a very nice man who always had scratches on his hands and forearms. At first, my grandfather didn't really pay attention to it until one day when his colleague walked in with scratches all over his face and arms. Apparently, the guy looked like he had just been attacked by a tiger, so my grandfather, who didn't really know what to say, asked him if everything was okay. And the guy said that he had been having some problems with his cat for the past few weeks, and both went on with their day. My grandfather spent a few days thinking about it. He had already noticed some scratches on him before. He actually believed him when he said he had problems with his cat, but at the same time, he said that that was definitely something off with the way the guy shrugged it off. Until one morning, his colleague didn't show up for work. At first, my grandfather didn't think much of it, but it was during his lunch break when he bought a local newspaper that he saw his colleague's face on the front page. Apparently, the police had been looking for a rapist who who had assaulted dozens of women in the neighborhood for the past few months and finally managed to arrest him. My grandfather was in complete shock when he understood that all those scratches that he'd seen were actually the marks left from the victim's attempts to escape from his colleague. My mom told me that the story haunts him for a long time, and that he was so creeped out to know that he had been in such good terms with a sex offender and for such a long time. He felt like he should have done something, or at least he should have been a bit more suspicious when he saw all those weird scratches on his arms, but yet at the same time he didn't really have any proof to justify his gut feeling. I'm sure your grandfather felt some type of residual guilt for this, but what could you really do in that situation? You can ask someone about marks or injuries, but outside of that, I don't know. It's a tough one. Sorry that happened. Oh my God, how many times did this happen to me? A new kid in high school joined our friend group. He had shifty eyes, which no one noticed other than me. I remember the first odd observation. It happened while watching TV at a friend's house. We were all watching a movie, and in the reflection of the glass covering the fireplace, I noticed that the new kid was only one not watching the movie. He was observing everyone else. I said something about it to my friend, and they thought I was just making shit up because I didn't like him. About a week later, we're at another friend's house having a party. I spot this new kid filling up 3 beer cans with water. He thought he was alone in the kitchen, but I was in the other room being quiet. When he left the kitchen, I noticed he hid 2 of the cans behind the flour and sugar jars. Later in the night, I saw they were all gone, i.e., he returned to the kitchen to grab them, making it look like he was drinking a bunch of beers. During the party, he acted extremely drunk and went to go pass out in a bedroom upstairs. I told people what I saw and said there's no way he's that drunk. People thought he was either drinking water to prevent getting more drunk, or that, again, I was saying a made-up lie because I didn't like him. Well, a few things started happening. First, one of my friends who was watching the movie realized he lost his wallet, and his credit card was used to buy a bunch of shit online, which was delivered to an unoccupied house in the neighborhood that was for sale. Also, the night this new kid passed out, several bottles of wine were stolen from the house, and a giant water cooler jug of quarters was taken from the house. It had hundreds of dollars in there. I was 1000% convinced that this kid watched my friend put his wallet down somewhere, then stole it. And that, when he was passed out upstairs, he was actually stealing the wine and quarters. No one else accused him. Over the next year, iPods were stolen, a laptop was stolen, video games were stolen. All these things kept happening at random houses that he was at. No one except me suspected it was this new kid. And some people even thought I was doing it and trying to blame him as a cover, which really pissed me off. You need better friends. Well, it just so happened that my cousin worked at GameStop, and at a family event, I was venting about this new kid. My cousin asked to see a photo and instantly said that this guy comes in all the time selling used video games. I don't remember why, but this never led to any security footage. However, it gave me the idea to go to a pawn shop and ask them if they had seen this person. Yep, he comes in all the time selling things. They had security footage of him selling a laptop one day, an iPad another day, and other small items. The worst part is, no one ever pressed charges on him. He gave a sob story about how he was poor and just needed to buy his own food, etc., etc. All lies, but whatever. Back in primary school, this other class had this kid. He was a regular kid, had some friends, played video games, played football, and was somewhat quiet. I always had a weird vibe when I was around him. Something about his eyes and the way he looked at people was terrifying me. At that time, he was just a regular kid who was good at fighting. When he got into fights, he was effing mental. No one had ever beat him in a fist fight. There were a few fights he got into in elementary, and I saw him fight with other kids, but he never lost, just because of how effing ferocious and merciless he was when he got the upper hand. A couple of years down the road, I found out that after he entered secondary school, he went absolutely effing nuts. Something in his head clicked, and he became extremely violent and aggressive. He was not afraid to attack someone over the stupidest shit, like the way someone looked at him when someone accidentally bumped into him, etc. He was also known to self-harm, not because he was depressed, but because when he had a lot of pent-up rage, he took it out on himself. One day, he got into an argument with a teacher. For some reason, he pulled out a pen stabbed himself in his left arm, and tore open his entire left hand from elbow to wrist. Blood was spraying everywhere, and everyone fled the class because he looked like he was about to attack them. Cops and paramedics were immediately called to the scene, and he was taken away. After he got out of the hospital, he got sent to juvie. I talked to someone who saw this thing happen, and apparently he effed up his arm so bad that his bone was visible. No one really knows what happened afterwards. I heard some rumors, like that he completely lost control of his left arm, that he's permanently locked in a psychiatric hospital because he has schizophrenia, and so on, but nothing concrete. I just hope that he's doing fine now.